Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. It's 1 o'clock on May 21st. And I'm calling to order the Landmark Preservation Commission meeting. First thing we do is introduce ourselves. I'm Julie Johnson. I'm a Historic Preservation Project Manager, and I was nominated by the community at large. Larry, can you take it away?
Yeah, I'm Larry Sykes. I'm an architect and I was nominated by History Colorado.
Hello, I'm Gary Petrie. I'm an architect and I was nominated by the Denver Planning Board.
Hi, I'm Erica Warzel. I'm an architectural historian and preservation consultant nominated by the community at large.
And I'm George Dennis, retired law enforcement, nominated by History Colorado.
And I'm Brittany Bryant, Denver Landmark Preservation staff.
Thanks, everybody. Before we go any farther, for those of you joining us virtually, I'll give you a couple of audio tips. For better sound quality, we encourage you to download Zoom on your desktop, laptop, tablet, or mobile device. You can click audio settings to bring up an additional menu. You can add a background noise suppression like the construction noise we have here might help, I don't know. Test your speaker and microphone, adjust their maximum output volumes. For presenters or public commenters, when it is your turn to speak, to mute or unmute, you can click on that little microphone icon at the bottom of the screen. Expanding the menu next to the microphone will reveal additional options. Select your speaker and microphone devices. Test your microphone and speakers, adjust their maximum output volumes. And if you still have audio challenges, you can switch to your phone for audio. All righty. All right, commissioners, we have one set of meeting records for approval. Does anybody have any questions, any comments, corrections on the last? Okay. All right, then do I hear a motion to approve said minutes for the May 7, 2024 meeting?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the meeting record for May 7th, 2024 as presented.
Thank you, Gary. Second. George has seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, great. We've accepted the meetings minutes as presented. Thank you very much, staff. Alrighty, next is public comment period for members of the public. At the beginning of the meeting, we reserve some time for the members of the public to have up to 2 minutes each for comments about historic preservation in general. This is not to include comments associated with specific projects or under review by the LPC. If you're joining us virtually to speak, you can click the hand raise button in Zoom, or you can dial *9 on your keyboard to raise your hand if you're joining by phone. Email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number if you're having difficulty with the hand raise option. And then, as usual, I go to the people here in person. Did anybody want to join to say something 2 minutes about historic preservation in general? Oh, okay, good. All right, do we have anyone who's joining us virtually that would like to do so? Doesn't look like it. Okay, great. All right, then everybody, let us move on to the consent agenda, please. These are routine design review items recommended for the commission approval without discussion. Applicants with items passed on the consent agenda should coordinate separately with Landmark Preservation staff to receive their certificate of appropriateness. There is no public comment for consent agenda items. This is how it works. I will announce the consent agenda by address. I'll ask the commissioners if they choose to take any items off the consent agenda, and any items off the consent agenda will be moved to the regular design review agenda. Commission members will need to announce any ex parte contacts and conflicts of interest on any items, and then the commission will make a motion and vote. All right. So first we have 2022-COA-323 at 1358 High Street in the Wyman District. We have 2024-COA-255 at 407 Corona Street in the Alamo Placida District. We have 2024 COA-235 at 1360 Birch Street, and that's in the Milo Smith House. And then 2024 COA-253 653 Marion Street and East 7th Avenue. Commissioners, did you have any concerns about any questions about any of the? All right, then I would like to hear a motion from the floor to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that the consent agenda be accepted as written.
All right, thank you very much, George. Do I hear a second? Erica has seconded it. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, great. The consent agenda has been approved. And anybody here or joining us virtually, you are free to leave the meeting at this point and just get in touch with your landmark preservation staff person. You're welcome to join us as we go forward, of course, but you can leave the meeting now. Your part of the business is over. All righty, commissioners, we have 4 design review projects in front of us today. The chair, I will announce the design review items on the agenda in order by address. The commission members will announce any ex parte contacts and conflicts of interest. Staff will introduce the application and make a recommendation, and the commissioners can question the staff. The applicant presentation is limited to 10 minutes, and commissioners can question the applicant. Public comment period follows the applicant's presentation, and everyone from the public that wishes to comment will be given 2 minutes per person. If you would like to speak regarding a specific project and are not part of that applicant team and you're joining us virtually, please click the hand raise button. For those calling via phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. If you're having difficulty with either hand raise option, then you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number. The staff will clarify after public comment if necessary. Commission can deliberate, and commission will make a motion and vote. Alrighty. Without further ado, our first item on our design review project agenda is 2024-COA-244 at 735 Race Street in the East 7th Avenue. And Crystal Marquez is our staff person. Hey, Crystal,
Hello,
take it away.
joining you all virtually from Las Vegas, so
I knew it. I knew it.
sorry for the noise in the background. Um, Yeah, anyway, so this property is located at 735 Race Street in the East 7th Avenue Historic District. And the property was recently rezoned to allow an additional dwelling unit. The applicants are proposing alterations to the primary structure that include window replacement, roof replacement, new egress windows and window wells, removal of a chimney, addition of skylight, and other new site work. The applicants are also proposing the demolition of the existing garage to add that new ADU unit at the rear of the lot. So here at the top, you can see some photos of the primary historic structure, and at the bottom, showing the existing streetscape with the structure called out in orange below. Next slide. So here you can see the proposed site plan. The location of the new ADU will be sited at the northernmost location at the rear of the lot along the property line, and the same location as the demolished garage. The site plan also shows the location of 2 new egress window wells at the south elevation and a new concrete patio at the rear of the structure. So next we'll look over the alterations to the primary structure first before finishing with the proposed ADU. Next slide. So here you can see the new proposed roof for the primary structure. At the upper right corner are photos of the existing asphalt shingle roof, which appears to be in good condition. Design guideline 2.26 states to repair historic roofing materials and features and replace only when necessary. The applicant is proposing to change this roof material to a solar concrete tile in the color Stone Mountain Dark, which you can see over here at the left side of the screen. Staff does have concerns that the new concrete roofing tiles will not match the profile and texture of the historic roofing, not meeting design guideline 2.26C. Next slide. On the left side here is the front facade of the primary structure. The only change being proposed is to remove a small portion of the chimney that remains. And you can see that at the upper left. On the right side is the north elevation, where the applicant is proposing to remove 1 main floor set of original windows and replace 2 basement windows and remove an existing side door and steps and brick in that area. Photos of the windows to be removed are at the center of the screen and are windows number 4 in your application packet. Next slide. And then here you can see the south side elevation of the primary structure. You can see the other proposed changes to the windows on the house. At the top is window number 13, which is an original window near the front side of the house that is proposed to be changed to a smaller window with a higher sill. Here again at the center screen are photos of these windows, which appear to be in good to moderate condition. Design Guideline 2.14 states to maintain the pattern and proportion of historic window and door openings. The applicant is proposing to remove original windows and doors at 3 elevations in this application and replace with different sized windows. Staff was most concerned with windows number 4 and 13, as these are at the main floor side elevations and may be visible from public vantage points. 2.14E and 2.14F state to avoid enclosing a historic window or door opening and also not to reduce an original opening, though more flexibility may be appropriate on a facade that's not visible, like the rear elevation. So at the bottom is also the new proposed elevation showing the smaller windows as well as those 2 new egress windows at the basement level. Design Guideline 2.18 states to locate and design a new egress window to be as inconspicuous as possible. And point B specifically states to align a new basement egress window or expansion of an existing egress window with other egress windows and features on a facade. The new basement egress windows do not meet Guideline 2.18B that states to align or expand new basement egress windows with other egress windows or features on a facade. So staff would recommend the applicant align the new egress windows with the windows above and expand those existing basement window openings rather than creating new openings and bricking in old openings. Next slide. So here you can see the proposed changes to the rear elevation that include removing 2 original windows and basement windows and adding a new patio and door, as well as a new skylight and cooler at the roof. Staff is supportive of the changes at the rear elevation as they will not be visible from public vantage points. Last, we'll look at the new proposed ADU. So here you can see the elevation facing the primary structure on the left and the alley elevation on the right. Design Guideline 4.19 states to design a new garage or accessory structure to be compatible with and subordinate to the primary structure and surrounding historic context. Staff is supportive of the overall mass and form of the new ADU, which is compatible and subordinate to the primary historic structure and fits with surrounding heights in the district. However, point B states to design the mass form and roof shape of a new garage or accessory structure to be compatible with the primary structure and other historic accessory structures in the surrounding context. So the roof shape of the new ADU is somewhat atypical as it has an inset portion under the main part of the roof closest to the north property line. None of the district examples shown in the application have this type of roof design, which makes this portion appear more like an addition rather than part of a new ADU structure. The applicant stated this was for zoning and building purposes. Additionally, at the west alley elevation on the right, the form with the additional half wall jutting out from the rest of the structure is atypical and is not characteristic of the district. The placement of the belt course also on the structure appears awkward at each elevation of the structure due to changes in form at the inset roof portion of the left side and also in relation to the half wall, as you can see here on the right side at the alley elevation. Next slide. So here are the south and north elevations of the proposed ADU. On the left, you can see where the sidewall juts out from the alley facade, which is to screen the main entrance to the ADU from the side. And on the right, you can see the north elevation closest to the property line with the 2 dormers and that inset roof portion underneath. The applicant is proposing to clad the new ADU with brick and a smooth fiber cement lap siding with a 6-inch reveal at the dormers and gable ends. The materials are historically found in the district and are compatible with the primary structure. However, the exact proposed brick manufacturer specifications had not been provided, so it's unclear if the brick is a standard size. However, the applicant is also proposing to paint the ADU, so integral brick color may be less important, but should be provided. And then finally, here are some isometric views of the new proposed ADU. The new structure will not be highly visible from the alley and is appropriate in terms of overall mass and scale, but has some issues with the form, roof shape, and detailing. Therefore, staff is recommending denial.
Okay, Crystal, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Crystal? No? Okay, all right, great. Then let's go on to our applicant's presentation.
She's
either-
virtual.
Oh, she's virtual. Great, sorry about that. Thank you. Hello, can you hear us? Hello? Can the applicant hear us? There you are.
I can hear you. Can you hear
Great.
me?
Yeah, we can, absolutely, yeah. So before you'll have 10 minutes to tell us about the project. And as you begin your 10 minutes, please give us your name and your address for our records, please.
Perfect. Good afternoon. My name is Ann Cuthbertson. I'm the architect for this project. My home and work address is 730 North Emerson Street. So I am also in this district and have done a lot of work in this district over the years. I would first like to say that I would like to just address the four main points that Crystal made leading to their staff recommendation for denial. I would just like to take them in order because in many cases I respectfully disagree with some of the interpretations of the design guidelines on some of the specifics. So regarding the window changes on the main house, yes, we are not actually recommending replacement of any of the windows. As Crystal said, and as our window assessment points out, the existing windows are in good shape. We are proposing minor repairs to all of the existing historic windows, such as replacement of sash cords, and just all of them have been painted shut. So we will go through careful actual historic restoration of the windows that we are not proposing making changes to. The guidelines, as I read them, does allow for making changes to historic windows, even if they're in good condition, to support modern life. And specifically, the window sills in the main house are barely 28 inches off the floor, which would not allow for any kitchen countertops or bathroom vanity countertops at those heights. We are taking pains to propose the new windows, including the window wells in the basement, to be symmetrical about the main roof ridge of the house. And in some cases, that does not place them exactly where the windows that are being removed are. But again, I don't read anything in the design guidelines that prohibits some specific relocating of window openings. So that's point number one. I also would point out that the windows, even though they are close to the front facade on the north and south elevations, will be barely visible from the public way. And the window wells will be completely not visible from either the street or the alley at the end of the day. Then moving on to the roofing. I do understand that this is a new product, so there's not much chance that we could point to existing other projects really anywhere in Denver that are using this solar tile. I have been following with great interest the sort of progression of solar roof tiles. And I would say the industry has definitely gone through some failures of the product since they were first starting to be explored about 20 years ago. But I do believe that this product that we are proposing has solved many of the problems that plagued, I would say, these products when they first came out. And I would suggest that this is, I would say by a long shot, a more elegant solution to solar than the traditional solar panels on houses. Obviously, we can't make the claim that this is similar to any historic product, but I do think that we should all be concerned about moving away from fossil fuels and towards renewable energy sources. And if we are limited to things that already exist in any of the historic districts, then we will never be allowed to consider products such as this. I also would not consider the asphalt roofing that's existing to be historic or original to the house. One of the neighbors who has lived in this district for a long time said that it is her memory that the house originally had a cedar shingle, which of course, for all kinds of reasons, we wouldn't be proposing returning to, but it is more similar in profile and appearance to these concrete solar panel roofing tiles. So I would just ask the commission to consider that a brand new roofing technology like this shouldn't be dismissed out of hand just because it doesn't already exist as a precedent in the district. Otherwise, we will never be able to have it in the district. And I do think as a roofing product, it has enormous promise for energy usage that I've already talked about. Then finally, moving to the shape of the garage and ADU roofs. I wouldn't agree that there are not other garage ADU combinations in the district that have some asymmetry. There are a couple of examples in your packet. They don't look exactly like what we're proposing, but I don't think it's a fair statement to say that there are not other asymmetrical examples as precedent. What we are shooting for is not symmetry, but balance with the design. And the reason we can't achieve strict symmetry just have to do with some site constraints. To the immediate north of our project is a driveway for the adjoining neighbor, and their driveway is extremely steeply sloped, such that by the time it meets most of our north wall of our existing garage, it is almost 2 feet above the level of the alley. So if we were to just pull the entire garage to the south by the setback required for the upper story ADU, we would have a very odd kind of alley-like condition between their driveway and the wall of our garage. Similarly, the use of the door, what's being referred to as a shed roof is our trying to comply with a zoning requirement which limits the ADU to the full setback and yet allows the garage to be 0 lot on that north side. And they require the wall of the ADU to be measurable. Therefore, we couldn't just continue the roof straight from the lower eave up to the new ADU ridge. They actually require, for their conformance with the bulk plane and the setback, they require that small eave at the ADU. So I understand that it bothered some members of staff, but we are trying to comply with some other agency requirements with that configuration. Finally, I would just say that this has been a lengthy process. We've gone through 7 different rounds of redesign, trying to comply with neighbor requests, landmark staff requests, members of the Chun Design Review Board, and you can't really tell from the way the project was presented to you, but we have, I think in good faith, made changes to each of those various contingencies, including the Chun Design Review. They are the ones that recommended that we drop the muntin grids on the doors facing the alley, the French doors you see in this elevation, which we have done. But you might not have known that we have tried to comply with various constituent requests from what was presented to you. In summary, I would like to say, both with the changes we are making to the house, which we believe we are really struggling to be very respectful to all of the design guidelines, and with the proposed ADU, which we have really struggled to be subservient to the main house, doing things like lining up the eave lines with the main house. I think that we have complied with both the spirit and the letter of the design guidelines with what is being proposed. And I would certainly be happy to go into more detail about any of these or other questions if the commission has specific things they'd like me to talk about in more detail.
Okay, Anne, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have questions for our applicant?
I have a question. The submittal has one page showing what the solar roof tiles look like, and then several pages of concrete roof tiles. I'm not clear what the solar roof tiles look like when applied to a roof. Because it's just an image of, it looks like a tile, and then the description talks about battens and other sorts of things. So it's not really clear what the solar tiles look like in, in any, in a roofing application. Could you talk about that?
That is a great question, and I certainly wish that I had good photographs of anything in the metro area that has already used this product, and I was unable to get that information from the manufacturer. The product is, you can tell in the easiest in the bottom left image on your screen, it is a solar panel directly applied to a substrate, which is these concrete roofing tiles. And then the way it works as a solar panel tile is that all of the solar panels are underneath the tiles, sort of linked together for capturing the solar gain. So the tiles themselves will have the appearance of you won't see very much of the underlaying concrete tile. You would see that primarily at the ridge, where there will be a fully concrete ridge tile. And that's why we're choosing the concrete base color to be as dark as possible so that it won't be jarring, in contrast to what is a very dark, not quite black, but very dark color of the solar panels themselves. But you can see, thank you for zooming in on this image now in the bottom left, you can see that the solar panel tiles are very thin and are physically applied to the thicker concrete tiles. And I don't know if that answers your question, but I certainly wish that I had better product material information or images to share with you, and this was the best we could do.
Anybody else?
I guess,
Larry?
yeah, excuse me, following up on that, is it your intent to cover the entire roof other than, ridge and valley areas with concrete tiles?
That is correct.
With solar tiles?
The solar tiles. It is our intention to do that only because we didn't want the view as one is coming down the street of that north side of the street facing gable to appear very different from the rest of the street facing roofs. So while there will be not as much, very little solar gain from that north facing part of the gable, we didn't want there to be a big difference of appearance.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? George, Ann, or I mean Erica, sorry. Yeah, you didn't have anything? Okay, great. And thank you very much. Now we'll go to our public comment, see if there's anybody that would like to make a public comment. If anyone joining us virtually would like to comment, to speak, please click the hand raise button in Zoom. You can dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand. Joining by phone, or you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number if you're having difficulty. You will be given 2 minutes to provide your comment, and I would ask that you start that 2 minutes with your name and address for our records. Anybody here wish to make a comment on the project? Okay, nobody here. Is there anyone virtually? No. It doesn't look like it. Okay, great. Is Crystal with us? Does she have any additional comments?
I have no additional comments.
Great, thanks, Crystal. Commissioners, did you have any other questions for Crystal before we begin to deliberate? No, okay, excellent. Then let's go into deliberation. Commissioners, what are your thoughts? Gary, Larry?
Well, I don't know what these tiles are gonna look like in situ,
Yeah.
which is, I think, in order for me to recommend approval, I'd like to see what they look like. And if they're, and it doesn't have to be a Denver example, it can be an example anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world on a house or building with similar exposure to a street. And if that doesn't exist, maybe a good computer rendering of just what exactly is the roof gonna look like once the panels are in place, because I don't understand, the drawings really don't show where the panels go, where the roof tiles go. It doesn't really show us what it looks like. And I think would be essential for us to approve something like that. At least that's my perspective. And secondarily, windows in good condition shouldn't be changed. I don't, sometimes, it's one of the challenges of trying to put a modern interior in a historic building. If people really want modern interiors, maybe they should try to do it in historic buildings that don't support that. That just creates a lot of challenges. So I know that's not a nice thing to say, but we all live with limitations.
Isn't that the truth? Thanks, Gary.
Yeah,
I can support the staff simply because I think they did an excellent job parsing out what the primary issues were and going down to the detailing of the ADU and its position as well as the roofing. I can support staff on this recommendation for
Okay,
tonight.
so you agree that they do not meet the guidelines?
Mhm.
Okay, great.
so I think
Right.
on the roofing question, it's an interesting one because we're dealing with a asphalt existing roof that, would not have been the original material. I think the architect made a good point about this concrete tile, at least as it is presented as, just raw concrete tile, not with the solar element added to it, does seem to support 2.26B when replacing roofing materials, match the replacement materials to those that would have been used or historically on the structure. If it has an appearance to a wood shake, similar to a wood shake, then I think there's a pretty good argument in favor of that as much as an asphalt shingle. It's just a question, like Gary is saying, do these solar tiles also look like that? My guess is that they would be much more uniform in color and texture, and in a way look very, my concern is they would look almost plasticky as a whole surface. And
I
that's
was
why I
worried
was
about them
asking,
being shiny.
is that the intent to kind of do the whole surface, or kind of patch in some to kind of create a more randomized effect? So anyway, I think, friendly comment to the architect to maybe look into that possibility. If it's super uniform looking otherwise. And then I think, I agree about the windows, the existing window openings. I think our guidelines are very clear about that. So I support staff in that. I'm curious what other commissioners think about the massing of the ADU. I do tend to agree with the staff evaluation of it being, not looking like a cohesive new ADU. And I guess I wonder about how commissioners feel about the fact that it's facing an alley, it's a secondary structure, it's all these things are being done with logical reasons. So, yeah.
Let's see if Erica had anything.
Since I haven't. Yeah, I guess just quickly going back to the windows, I recognize the architect, point that trying to make the new openings still be symmetrical, and I appreciate that, but I don't think there's a whole lot of room for interpretation when it says, do not reduce an original opening to accommodate a smaller window. And that, I think the side, while the rear, I agree with staff that the rear has, I could support those changes there because of the lack of visibility. I think the other two sides are visible enough that I can't see it matching that design guideline 2.14F. So then I guess with the ADU, I frankly, I don't really understand the constraints of the bulk plane and how this smaller shed roof, or however we want to think of it, is working or helping to meet that, while helping to meet what their program needs are. And so I have a hard time. The mass itself may not be problematic, but I do agree with the staff that the form just seems out of place with this primary structure. And I don't find it to be either compatible with or subordinate to under 4.19. So I guess while I again appreciate the applicant's comments, I think I have to come down and agree with staff on denial at this time.
Okay, all right. Any other thoughts? Gary, I see you researching.
No, I'm just trying to put what everybody's saying and looking at the drawings at the same time, and just,
Right, that's fair. If there aren't any other comments, I think we're fairly well agreed on this. Do I hear a motion?
I can make the motion.
Thank you, Erica.
Just have to scroll down to it. I move to deny application number 2023-COA-244 for the ADU and alterations at 735 North Race Street as per design guidelines 2.14, 2.18, 2.26, 2.36, 4.19, 4.20. Presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Erica, thank you. Do I hear a second?
second.
Gary has seconded it. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, the application has been denied unanimously tonight. All right, we are on to our next design review project, which is 2024-COA-081 at 2535 West River Drive in the River Drive District. And again, it's Crystal coming to us from lovely Las Vegas. Hi.
Hi, I don't know if you can hear the music in the background.
Hey, all, yeah, joining us virtually here. She's actually on vacation. She's joining us from her vacation. So thank you very much, Crystal. At any rate, take it away.
Okay, great. So here is 2535 West River Drive, a contributing structure in the River Drive Historic District. It was built in 1888 and is a gable front contributing structure to the district. The property owners had a project for a new rear addition reviewed and approved in 2020. And during demolition for the addition, the demolition contractor had removed and destroyed all the windows on the property, including front facade windows that were supposed to remain. So the designation application property inventory form stated that the windows on this property had previously been replaced and only the one remaining on the east elevation had been original. So the applicant came before you earlier this year on February 20th, asking to keep all of the new windows on the house since the others had been destroyed and the new windows had already been installed. The commission did allow the side windows to remain as they were less visible from public vantage points. However, you all added a condition that the two front windows be replaced to match the original size, operation, and proportion. And here at the bottom right, you can see the existing new casement windows that were installed. And at the end of the staff report are historic photos of those front windows and their previous proportions for reference. Next slide. So the applicant has concerns now about infilling the now enlarged openings to match the smaller sized windows that previously existed. And the applicant is proposing to replace the existing casement windows with double hung aluminum clad windows that better match the historic operation style, but that fill the current existing openings and do not match the previous size and proportion of the commission's previous condition. So staff is recommending denial of the application as the windows do not meet design guideline 2.14, which states to maintain the pattern and proportion of historic window and door openings, And design guideline 2.19 states when replacement of a historic window is necessary to match the replacement design to the historic window design. So the applicant has just proposed to replace those 2 casement windows at the existing size with double hung aluminum clad windows. That's it.
All right, Crystal, commissioners, any questions for Crystal?
Oh, sorry. I
Yeah.
didn't realize the slide had changed. Apologies.
I was like, wait, what? Okay, all right, commissioners, any questions? Thank you, Erica. I was like, what? Questions for Crystal?
No,
Doesn't look like it. Okay, Crystal, thank you. So is our applicant here? The applicant is not here personally, so let's go, there's somebody there virtually, excellent. All right, applicant, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Hi, you'll have 10 minutes to tell us about the project. And please begin that 10 minutes with your name and address, please.
Yeah, so my name is Robert Loddick. My address is 2535 River Drive. It is the subject property, and I am the homeowner on this property and live there currently. So I just want to thank Crystal for the overview and the explanation. And I want to start by saying that this is, I think, my 3rd or 4th time in front of the board at this point. The project has been underway for at least almost 2 years in construction, 3 years in the design phase, and I just moved back into the house, and I'm really hoping that we can do whatever possible to make this this fix to these windows the least intensive as possible. I understand that the windows do not match the historic nature of the original windows. However, I do want to point out, and I think Crystal mentioned this before, that the windows that were destroyed by the contractor were not original historic windows. They were aluminum windows, and they were not part of the historic structure of the house. So in replacing the windows with a smaller size, as Crystal pointed out, there's going to be multiple problems associated with that, making the opening smaller. That'll lead to issues with the siding and kind of like patched in siding that won't look very very good compared to the rest of the front of the house, because there will be cuts and seams in that siding, and especially small cuts around like the left and the right side of the windows, as well as on the bottom portion of the window. So there's not only an aesthetic issue that comes with that, but then also a waterproofing issue as well. And then the same issue is the same thing on the inside of the house as well, on the drywall. So if we make this window smaller, there's going to have to be additional drywall patches and repairs that will have to be made and associated with that. And then I know this is not your guys' problem, but for me personally, I am living in this house, so all these additional steps will just make it that much harder for me to be living there while all of this is going on. So I thought that in replacing the window with the double hung window was a fair and good compromise, and also will provide a better final product that won't have aesthetic issues or issues with weatherproofing. So I hope that you can consider this as a potential solution here. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for our applicant?
I have
Larry,
one question.
go for it.
Looking at the photos, it appears that not only the windows are larger, the new windows, but it also looks like the head height is lower. Is that correct? Or am I just misinterpreting?
That is, yeah, that is correct. The head height is slightly lower. And again, that was the same contractor that destroyed the windows, put that a little bit lower there. So, yes, that's correct.
Anybody else? Questions for the applicant? Doesn't look like. Thank you very much. Now let's go to public comments to see if anybody would like to make a comment about the project. Again, you can click the hand raise button in Zoom if you're joining us virtually. Dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if you're joining us by phone. You can always email us at landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number if you're having difficulty with either of those options. Everyone will be given 2 minutes to provide your comments. Anyone here? Okay, anyone virtually wish to join us? Comment, doesn't look like it. Okay, great. Crystal, are you there?
I am.
Okay, great. Commissioners, do you have any questions with Crystal? Or Crystal, do you have anything that you'd like to, any redirect, any comments?
I have no further comments.
Okay, commissioners, anything else for Crystal? Okay, good. All right, Crystal, you're off the hook. Thank you very much and have a great vacation.
Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, commissioners, let us go into deliberation then. What are your thoughts?
So I noticed the difference in height too for the windows, and I'm concerned about, I don't know how this plays out, but I'm concerned about putting in original size windows in the opening that they are now at this lower head height. So I don't know, I just feels like the windows need to be completely redone. And
I agree.
I know that's a huge undertaking, but this is very important. This is like the one, elevation that you see of this very modest Victorian cottage, and these windows are an important character defining feature of that. And to have them, lower, larger, even if they are made to be double hung, I think it just very much compromises that.
Larry?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I mean, the key thing with the height to me is that those existing openings shared the same height as the door. And so when they've dropped down and then also become bigger, it really, I think, just changes the perception of, this one front facade, that's, always the most important thing.
Especially in such a modest, as you're talking about, such a modest, small structure.
And, I mean, I understand the applicant's concerns about redoing work. I mean, I guess what I would say is that it's all relatively small pieces of siding that were clearly replaced in the process of doing this originally. And so, it's by no means necessary to only patch around, the part of the wall that's going to be brought in. Those lengths of siding can be replaced all the way from, the door to the window and the window to the corner of the wall fairly straightforwardly.
Yeah, I'm doing that on a project.
And the waterproofing can be redone within the framing as part of that process. So I don't see any technical reasons why that actually is all that challenging.
Gary, George, did you have any thoughts?
I agree.
Well, I was going to thank Erica for putting into words what I was feeling and couldn't say. So, but yes, I didn't see anything remarkably changed from the last application. And I would support staff on this too. We just need to get the windows back.
Right. Then do I hear a motion from the commissioners?
I will move to deny application number 2024-CLA-081 for the window violations at 2535 West River Drive as per design guidelines 2.14, 2.19, presented testimony, submitted documentation and information provided in the staff report.
Larry, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I think Gary got it. Gary seconded it. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, the application has officially been unanimously denied. We are now on to 2024-COA-248 at 975 Grant Street /252 East 10th Avenue, the Porter House. And Jesse is our staff person. Hi, Jesse, take it away.
All right.
Can
So
you turn your
today-
screen on?
I thought I did. Oh, no, it didn't click it. Okay, so today we're gonna talk about reviewing window violations at 975 Grant Street, 252 East 10th Avenue. So the tax assessors, the tax assessor's records do date the building to 1906 for its date of construction. However, the designation for this individual landmark listed at 1912, so just wanted to make that quick correction. The structure is a contributing building to the Sherman Grant Historic District, as well as being an individual landmark. The date of or period of significance for the Sherman Grant Historic District is prior to and including 1959. So a pretty broad one, and this is an earlier district designation. So the landmark inspector, Lauren Gleason, issued a notice of violation on November 15th, 2023 for the replacement of windows on the carriage house with vinyl windows. And subsequently, staff received an application requesting to maintain those vinyl windows on the carriage house. This application previously came to the commission on April 2nd, 2024. The motion for the application failed with 3 commission members in support of denial and 2 commission members opposed. The applicant is bringing the application back to you today and is requesting retroactive approval for the 5 vinyl windows on the carriage house. The location of those windows are under review are shown on the site and floor plans on the left side of the screen. This building is located on the corner of Sherman and 10th and has very high visibility from both streets, as demonstrated by the photos on the right side of the screen. So Landmark staff are recommending denial of this application, citing design guidelines 2.20E and 2.20F. And I'll spend the next few slides just going over how we came to those conclusions.
I don't have remote control abilities anymore, so I'll just have to change it for you.
Okay. So on the left side of the screen is a picture of the building from the corner of Sherman and 10th. This is from 1948. And as you can see in this picture, the first floor wasn't windows, it was actually garage bays, 2 garage bays. So sometime in the 1970s, outside of the period of significance, those garage bays were infilled and 4 windows were added into the garage bay openings. And then a 5th one was added under the breezeway that connects it to the main structure. So the windows that were installed, of course, would be non-contributing. They remained in place or would be non-historic alterations. The applicants also provided, why this is popping up, excuse me. The applicant also provided photos of one of the windows prior to replacement. And as you can see, it's just in really poor condition. So staff would have likely been supportive of replacement. It would have still required landmark review. Fortunately, the owner did not know that it required landmark review, which is a common problem that we run into. And the other piece to this is that while we would have been supportive of replacement, it would have had to meet guideline requirements for material and mutton patterning. So staff would like to note that they did match, excuse me, let me back up here for a second. So her design guideline 2.20, when replacing missing or non-historic windows, you should match the replacement designs to the historic window designs if possible. Staff would like to note that the 1970s replacement windows maintain similar proportions, profiles, and patterns to the historic windows on that primary structure, featuring they feature similar window inset and mutton pattern. And the muttons do appear to be simulated divided lights, as shown in the right side of the screen in the lower image. Next slide, if you wouldn't mind, Brittany. So we're gonna hang out on this slide for just a little bit. So pictured here is the current site conditions as seen from 10th Avenue, as well as a close-up of the replacement vinyl windows. Staff have two primary concerns over these replacement windows. One is materials, and the second is divided light profile. So per design guideline 2.20E, when replacing a non-historic window, applicants should use traditional materials. Traditional materials for wood windows include wood or aluminum clad wood. The use of vinyl window materials does not meet guideline 2.20E. Moving on to that second point, per design guideline 2.20F, only use a divided light design if there are historic divided light windows used on the historic building or similar historic buildings. Use true divided lights or simulated divided lights with a spacer bar. And it has some additional information in that guideline on the spacer bar. So windows with only muttons between it goes on to say that windows with only muttons between the glass shall not be allowed. While the applicant did match that divided light window pattern from the 1970s windows, as well as other windows that are found on that primary structure, they did install internal mutton bars with no external, so it was a grill between the glass basically, and that fails to meet 2.20F. And then when you look at the image on the left side of the screen, you can see that there are some windows that have that true divided light or simulated divided light. They're still intact. Hopefully that didn't cut out entirely.
Want to be
you
in
can
an
see-
elevator.
You can see that mutton pattern, you can clearly see the depth of it, the profile. And when compared to those first floor windows, you can clearly see that those are grills between the glass.
the sound and then we can get started. Second. Jack. You're good. Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks, Erin.
Thank you. You are good to start up again. We should be live and
Okay, all right, sorry about the delay, everybody, really apologize, we don't really know what caused that, either weather or construction or just bad luck. But we will begin again, just if you are ready to start.
Absolutely. So I'm just gonna wrap this up. So I did want to provide some additional information on the designation of County Grant Historic District as well as the Porter House. As this was brought up specifically in the last meeting, additional information requested. So the Sherman Grant Historic District was, designation was written in 1997, so one of our earlier ones. And it is designated for architecture, history, and geography with a period of a significance that is prior to and including 1959. There are 33 resources in this historic district, 3 of which are single-family residential structures, early to the neighborhood. Those include 1115 Grant Street, the Dennis Sheedy Mansion, 150 East 10th Avenue, the Crawford Hill Mansion, and 975 Grant Street, Porter House. The designation, and I would also note all 3 of those are individual landmark properties to this district. The designation does mention carriage houses at the Dennis Sheedy Mansion, but does not call out the carriage house specifically at 975 Grant Street. This may be because the carriage house at the Sheedy Mansion is completely detached and it is massive. It is very palatial as far as carriage houses go. And then the carriage house at 975 Grant Street is attached by a breezeway wall and is very much integrated into the overall structure from the street view. The designation does cover the loss of buildings to this district. So there were several periods where there was a lot of change happening in this neighborhood. And as I mentioned, the 3 properties that I called out were some of the earliest to this neighborhood and that are still extant. It does call out the demolition of a house and carriage house at 1165 Grant Street in 1940. And then while carriage houses are not called out specifically as contributing or non-contributing to this district, they are threaded throughout the designation and are an integral part of the district, and they aid in the understanding the site prominence of early mansions in this neighborhood, as well as development patterns for this neighborhood. And then moving on to the individual landmark designation, the Porter House designation was written in 1989. So again, another really early designation. The designation does not delineate between the main house and the attached carriage house, but does speak about the building's overall architectural significance as an architect design structure. That architect is listed as Maurice Bisco, and he is also credited with the Dickinson Branch Library, as well as Bonfils House at 707 Washington Street. So during the previous review of this project, the applicant did state that the carriage house was not a contributing feature and stated that flexibility should be granted for the replacement windows. If considered a non-historic secondary structure, if we were to use Chapter 4, the design guidelines would still apply here and the windows would have required review. Guideline 4.8G states use window materials that are similar to windows on the historic buildings in the surrounding context. It does provide flexibility for the use of wood, aluminum clad wood, or fiberglass composite windows. Vinyl is not mentioned. And then moving on to 4.8H, it states that when using divided light windows, use true divided lights or simulated divided lights with a spacer bar. So even if we applied that chapter to this application, it would still, a staff's recommendation would still be denial, as it does not cleanly meet the guidelines. And then landmark staff feel that the carriage house is actually a part of the character of the and the overall architectural significance of this house and site. And we are using chapter 2 because we feel like that is the chapter that best applies in this case. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, staff is recommending denial of this application as the windows do not clearly meet guideline 2.20E or 2.20F.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Jesse?
I guess I just want to clarify the window in the breezeway. The opening itself was not historic. It was added at the time that these other 4 windows openings were added.
That is a good question for the applicant. From my understanding, it was added as well as this at the same time period. That was the same type of window material that was used.
And do you have a sense of how visible it is?
It is completely under that breezeway. Brittany, if you go to that first slide.
Yeah,
and you can see like there is a doorway there. It's not an open breezeway and it's connected onto the back of the house.
Okay. Thanks. Anybody else? Question for Jesse? Okay, great. Jesse, thank you. So our applicants are here. Sorry about the delay. It's all right. Stuff happens. If you'll have 10 minutes between the two of you to tell your, talk to us about your project. And if you could start with your name and address, that would be great. Thank you. And then we ask Brittany to take us slide 6.
Hi, I'm Penelope Euchre, the homeowner, and I'm Bridget Roscoe. I'm an architect and a longtime friend. So here again, you see a historic photo of what the house looked like, and the main house looks pretty much exactly like that today. The carriage house had garage doors until sometime in the 70s, and it was a very poor modification. They cut the brick or they infilled the brick, and the brick does not match. You can kind of see from that photo. And the 4 windows that were installed in the 70s were poor quality. The 3 windows above are original windows. And then in the breezeway, they roughly cut the masonry and put a window in at that time as well. Next slide, please. So the period of significance was up until 1959. And the windows, because they were installed after the period of significance and were of such poor quality compared to the main house and the original windows above, it never occurred to us that we would have to go before landmark to replace these poor quality windows that were falling apart. Another part of this, we've lived in this house for almost 30 years. We've lived in it longer than Porter, who built it. It is very much to live in a historic house, a labor of love. You respect the history, but at the same time on fixed income, where my husband and I are both retired, trying to hold this house together. And these windows that fell apart were almost $6,000. They were custom windows to replace and match. And we were unaware of the guidelines. Next slide. So this is looking across the street from the carriage house, directly across. And that building there is part of the historic district. And it is a hodgepodge of vinyl. You can see the wood trim. The wood is falling apart, very poor condition. You have you have no muttons, you have muttons. You have vinyl. It's every window is something different. And again, that's directly across looking out from the carriage house. And the carriage house is actually not on Sherman. It's on the corner of 10th and Grant. Next slide. Another example, these are historic windows that were replaced with vinyl within the district. Next slide. Another example, this is within eyesight of the carriage house. And these windows have vinyl internal muttons in the historic district. Next slide. This one is particularly interesting to me. Walking this, I mean, I've been a walker in my neighborhood for 30 years. It's a National Historic Site. It has vinyl windows, all of them, internal muttons, exactly what we did. And what is to me very significant, Landmark approved 86 windows in 2015. And it just feels so arbitrary that a carriage house, non-historic windows is being called to task when in fact Landmark approved the exact same windows within steps from my house. Next slide.
So this is a picture of the Crawford Hill Mansion, a landmark designated structure. And it's not clear when these windows were replaced, but it's clear that the original windows in the upper sash had muttons, and many of the existing windows in the structure today have no muttons at all. Particularly clear is the lower right is an image of two windows that are centered over the front portico, one with muttons, one without. Next slide.
And this is a tough neighborhood. This is Capitol Hill. We have a lot of vandalism, a lot of graffiti, and when we remove graffiti, we have to protect the bricks and the limestone trim. It's just a constant maintenance nightmare. And we have a lot of things on the agenda that really need replacement. We have a very old boiler. We have no air conditioning. We're retired on a fixed income. And our bid to replace these to what Landmark would like would be over $35,000. Next slide.
Next slide. So quickly, this is a site plan just showing where these windows are. Next slide. And some of the images on the left are taken from Google pre-replacement windows. The one on the right here is the window when it was sort of cobbled together. It literally fell apart upon use. So you've seen it was in very bad repair. Next slide, please. So on the left here is the window that is in the breezeway. You can kind of see that the brick has just been roughly cut. The window sill that was installed in approximately 1970 was this flagstone. It had the, a wood window put in there in 1970, and then it had the same similar replacement vinyl in the last 2 years. On the right is a slide of the existing condition today of the 4 windows that face 10th Avenue. Next slide, please. So what I'm showing on the left here is that, although this is vinyl, the frame width matches the windows above. And, and so from a street view, these windows look very like the original windows above. And also from a street view, since this is a parking area, most of the time the windows are obscured by vehicles parked there. Next slide, please. So this is just a little bit of a detail showing, what parts of the 1970 wood windows that were retained, the vinyl installed, and that there are in fact, yes, between the glass muttons, but muttons. Within respect to our budget, every effort was made to replace these windows to be consistent with the existing structure. Next slide, please. So, and as what's noted here is that, the carriage houses have not been being treated the same in Landmark. And although I don't think we were saying that it was a non-contributing structure, but that it was an accessory structure, not the primary structure where these windows were replaced. Next slide, please. So, in the guidelines, it does note that, if you have need to create
a better thermal performance in a window, that you could install storm windows on the exterior, which is this picture taken from the guideline shows that when you put this exterior storm over a window that has muttons, it looks very much like muttons between the glass. Next slide, please. And in fact, this is the Denver Foundation across the street from the carriage house, next slide, that has in fact done these compliant storm windows on the outside of the muttoned windows. And from the street, they look like muttons between the glass. No, next slide, please. So I've come back to this slide again, that is a significant structure. It's on the National Historic Register. And, you know, this structure sets a precedence for the neighborhood. It was approved by Landmark in 2015 for 86 windows that are vinyl windows with muttons between the glass. Next slide, please. So as a final note, so this is our request, that based on the fact that from the streets, these windows look very like the windows that are historic and above. There is multiple instances of vinyl windows with muttons between the glass in the district, some of which have been approved by Landmark, and that to have, you know, a private owner being required to replace these windows is not equitable and seems a bit arbitrary. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for our applicants? No, no questions? All right, great, thank you. Thank you. All right, do we have anybody here in person that wants to comment on there's not. Anybody that virtually able to follow our meeting want to make a comment? Doesn't look like it.
There's a
Oh, there is a hand raised, okay, good. All right.
Hi, I'm sorry, I don't have a comment about this particular project. Sorry, I just raised my hand because I have a future comment. So I'll go ahead and lower my hand.
Okay, sorry about, that's okay, that's all right. Anybody else? Okay, doesn't look like it. All right. Jesse, did you have any other thoughts?
I
that you wanted to
do.
share with commissioners? Okay.
And Brittany, if you wouldn't mind bringing the applicant's presentation back up, just so I can reference specific. Just wanted to provide additional background on some of the examples that were shown. If you could start with 1000 German Street. So this, okay, great. So this structure is part of Poets Row. It's a series or a grouping of buildings, all named after famous American poets. This was part of a project that Jen originally reviewed. No approvals were ever issued by Landmark on any of the structures. So this may have been added, or this may have been done in violation. This may have been done prior to the district designation, or this could have also been done prior to current design guidelines. And just to clarify, if these windows were ever replaced in the future, which the property owners for Poets Row buildings were looking to do, they would have to be replaced with materials that meet the current guidelines. Moving on to 1105, 1123 Sherman Street. So this was not permitted. There is no COA on file that I could find, or in Acela, which is our permit keeping system. This may have been again added in violation prior to designation or prior to current design guidelines, and would require replacement with materials to meet the guidelines. Moving on to 1010 Sherman Street. This is an active violation that was handled by our former colleague, Evan Schuckler, and then that was passed on to me. And I am actively working with the property owners to put in appropriate replacement windows.
So these were not approved as.
They were put in violation.
Okay.
Then moving on to 1020 Sherman Street. So there is no COA on file. I did look up the Acela record. It was a log record that was submitted. George Goss, who was a former employee with Landmark, said that it looked like they were recording this as south and not north, and then marked it as review not required. This absolutely would have required a review and is in a violation. And then finally, 150 East 10th Avenue. This was also not permitted and no COA on record. Again, this may have been a case where they had been added in violation prior to the period, to the district designation or prior to the current design guidelines. Again, Landmark doesn't go out and actively look for violations, but when we are made aware of those violations, we do follow up on them. And of course, all replacements would have to meet current design guidelines. So just a little clarification and background on those examples.
Jesse, thank you. Commissioners, any other questions for Jesse? Before we, right?
I just wanted to comment that National Register listing doesn't impose any design review strict restrictions on the property. So even if a property is listed on the National Register, you can make alterations to that building. They would only be reviewed as part of a tax credit application if the property owner was seeking that. Only local level designation places design review restrictions, just for clarity on that one property that is listed on the National Register.
But it is because you can have two types of designation that does not have local.
You can have more than
Oh,
two
it is-
types
it is
of
locally
designation.
It does have local.
It's within the district
It's within the
boundaries.
district,
Yeah,
okay,
all
so
of
it's
those
not
examples
individual.
are within the district
Okay,
boundaries.
so it still has to go through that.
But
boundary.
it's on the National Register and it is in the Sherman Grant Historic District,
Okay.
which is local level.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions, commissioners? All right, then let's go into deliberation. Second time we've seen this project.
I didn't see anything remarkably different from the last time we deliberated on this. It's a huge house. They are expensive to maintain and bring into compliance. And so again, I would have to support staff in their denial. This is one of the unfortunate things, but guidelines are guidelines, and that's, it wouldn't happen if we didn't follow them.
George, thanks. Erica?
Yeah, I guess I would just, I agree with staff and I recognize that it can be very frustrating to see other people or other properties in violation and feel like everyone else is getting away with something. But I think it is important to hold all of these designated properties to the guidelines. I guess I would just like to kind of throw out a possibility of maybe removing the fifth window that's in the breezeway as a compromise, since it's not visible, it's not a historic window location, just as a, you know, kind of recognizing that we understand that this is a financial burden and that this one isn't necessary to meet the guidelines to have it replaced.
I'd support that. Gary would all as well, Larry? Just what do you thought?
Yes, and I mean, yeah, I was here also the last time we reviewed this, and you know, I appreciate the applicants bringing up some of those examples which we didn't see last time, but I echo Eric's sentiment that, yeah, and I think it's been clarified by staff that as you dig into these things, yes, they're also in violation, and yeah.
All right, then it sounds like we're in agreement. The fifth window, are you willing to do a motion?
I'll give it a try.
Okay.
Let me think about this. So if we're
Do you have any help for her, Brittany?
Is it possible to remove the fifth window?
So we have purview over everything on the exterior that requires a building or zoning permit. Replacement of windows requires a building permit. If so, if you do not feel that it is as significant, you need to base that on the design guidelines and find a design guideline or intent statement that supports that.
Okay,
So I don't think
but-
I have that, I don't have the guidelines in front of me right now, but I would look towards the intent statement 2Y, I think.
but in addition to that, I mean, procedurally, it really has to be a conditional approval with the condition that the 4 windows on the 10th Avenue elevation are not approved, essentially. Because I couldn't
Yeah,
put
correct.
forward a denying the application entirely, but except for the 1 window. That doesn't make sense.
You could, I mean, capture it in discussion today that moving forward, we would exempt the interior breezeway based on, but again,
Pointing to a supporting,
Right,
I
because-
understand
Still in
that, but
violation.
Because they'll need to come before us for the other 4 windows. We could deny this, but the discussion will let them know that they don't
come
have to
back.
replace that 5th
They don't
window.
have to come back to us for the 5th one.
Well, it would be in the whatever submittal they put together, because they would still be replacing a window or not.
right.
So I think the most straightforward thing is to deny this, but they have, the
Knowing,
commission's sentiment that that kind of hidden window is not as important as
Yeah.
the 4 that face the street.
right.
Yeah, it's on record.
I was just gonna add in, I think that if they replace or propose replacement of the 4 windows, since they, if they were proposing replacement of the 4 windows that face the street, with materials that meet the guidelines, since they were non-historic windows that were replaced, we can review that administratively. So we could review those 4 windows administratively.
but we don't allow vinyl. We don't allow vinyl in anywhere. And I think Erica, you're proposing to exempt this window from our review because it is not visible.
So just a clean denial on that property.
Yeah, if I still want to though, do I still need to point to something specific saying why we think this 5th window?
There's no guideline currently that talks about visibility other than altering a window.
Is there the intent statement? Does an intent statement help in any way?
So intent statement 2G is to maintain the pattern and portion and location of original window and door openings and their appearance on the historic facade.
It's not
2H is preserve original windows and doors.
So I mean, I feel like 2G, we're not talking about an original or historic window and it's not on a facade, if you will. So I feel like I could point to that.
Can you share your conversation?
sorry.
Jesse?
Well, if I can just pop in.
Sure.
I think we need to look at the application as a whole. And under the ordinance, you can approve an application subject to conditions, or you can deny the application. So if you deny the application, a new application has to come back and you can review that, and the applicant has heard the deliberation on what should be brought forward next time. And that may be the cleanest route to go here.
Okay, yeah, I think that was, seemed like that's where we had landed, so thank you for confirming that. I'll just do that and with the understanding that we don't feel that 5th window is necessary. to move forward with.
Yeah.
So I move to deny application number 2023-COA-045 for the replacement of non-historic windows at 975 Grant Street / 252 East 10th Avenue as per design guidelines 2.20E, 2.20F, character defining features for the Sherman Grant Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Erica, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
George has seconded it. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, the application has been denied.
Can I ask a question? So this fifth window and what step forward? Is this saying that all 5 windows must be replaced? Or the 4, or we come back with another application? Or what is the step forward?
You'll have to submit a new application, and based off commission deliberation, they might provide flexibility for the 5th window under the breezeway.
So if you have additional questions, can you please link up with Jesse afterwards?
Yes,
Because we're going to
absolutely.
lose quorum in 20 minutes and we do have one more
Yeah,
application.
that's great. It's a good question though, absolutely. All right, our final design review project is 2024-COA-256. And that is at 1366 Humboldt Street in the Wyman District. And Amy, this is Amy's first project that she is presenting to us.
Not my first ever.
Not your first ever,
Just for
as a temporary landmark.
Hi, everyone. I'm here to present to you 1366 North Humboldt. This property is on the western end of the Wyman Historic District. It was built in approximately 1902. And we're here to resolve a window violation that was discovered on March 12th by our landmark inspector, who just happened to be doing site visits in the neighborhood and saw window replacement in progress and issued a citation. The property representative is here with us today to provide his point of view about the situation. He grew up in the home and recently inherited the property with 2 other people. He's indicated that he did not know there was a historic designation. That wasn't something he was aware of in the past. It occurred in 1993. And he was under the impression that window replacement did not require a permit, which is true of non-designated structures. So just for context. Let's see, Brittany, would you please move the slides? So I'll run through these images. Before the work was stopped, 5 original windows were replaced, and they are indicated on the next few slides with the pink X's. 2 of them were in the front bay window, and not only were the windows replaced with a composite window, but the operation was changed. They were double hung. There are 10 remaining windows, and again, I'll run through them and help you understand the layout. There were 3 original windows left on the front. 4 on this side. Sorry, the slides are hopping around beyond my control. 2 historic windows on the south side and 1 on the rear. Since the initial contact with the property owners, they have made a revision to their proposal. As I said, 5 windows were replaced and were replaced with a composite. They are now proposing an aluminum clad window and will change the operation on the bay windows back to double hung, and staff supports that. The aluminum clad window that's proposed is a good match to the original in terms of the dimensions of the window components. What we are currently not in support of is the replacement of the remaining 10. Next, please, Brittany. So the applicant happens to be a professional in the window replacement industry. He assembled his own assessment of the window condition as he was having difficulty getting one of our recommended historic preservation consultants to respond to his inquiry. He did manage to pull that off at the last moment. So there's information in your packet that is both the applicant's assessment and the historic preservation specialist assessment. In general, the conclusion is, next slide, please, that the original windows all show sort of representative deterioration that you'd expect of windows of this time frame. One of the images here is a hopper window that is on the side of the building. It is not particularly visible. It has some rot at the sill. Next slide, please. Other windows have peeling paint, missing ropes for the operation. At least one is sort of racked in the frame and difficult to open and close. Again, fairly typical of windows that are this old. I understand there's been some efforts over the years to maintain the home in general, and particularly these windows, and the applicant feels at this point that they are beyond salvage. That is not what's indicated by the window assessment by the historic preservation professional. Next slide, please. So on this chart, I've indicated the windows that are original that are remaining are yellow, and those that are pink have already been replaced. You'll see a lot of windows on this chart. Not every window on the house is proposed for work in this scope. There's one diamond pane, beautiful window up in a dormer on the front, no work proposed. And there's a number of windows that are associated with an addition towards the back of the building. We are only talking about the 5 that were replaced and the 10 historic that remain. The window assessor has identified that the windows will require comprehensive restoration effort, being removed from the jamb, repaired, reglazed. The glazing putty has dried out and is no longer functional. So it's that sort of elbow grease effort that is needed to maintain historic windows would be called for here. Staff finds that the design guidelines to replace all 10 of these windows are not met because of their repairability. We are recommending denial. I will say that there are 4 windows that have limited visibility. 2-1, which is on the rear of the building, 2-12, which is the hopper on the side of the building. It's quite close to the adjacent home, and 2 basement level windows. We do support, again, the aluminum clad product that the applicant has recommended or proposed. It's a good match, but find that repair is the first priority.
That's it. Okay, thank you. Any questions for staff? No? Okay.
Oh, so sorry. I plugged the wrong computer.
It's okay. It's all right. All right. By this time, you probably know the routine. You'll have 10 minutes to tell us about your project.
I'll be short.
Okay, please give us your name and address for our record.
Ted Coombs, 1366 North Humboldt Street. The house I grew up in the 80s. My dad did restoration on it. My father was an architect. It is in brutal disrepair. We inherited it when my father passed away September 30th. We're in the process of trying to go through and get things fixed up as much as we possibly can. It's been a rental for the last 30 years. I don't even know what to tell you about the interior. Water damage, all sorts of stuff. The biggest issue that we had, and the reason that we decided to go through and do replacement, was water. You don't really see it in the pictures, I suppose, but that wood is starting to have major issues. And in my business, that's one of the telltale signs that a window should be removed so that you can get back there and properly fill and replace the window. There's brick, mortar, you name it, that is starting to have some pretty major damage that if something's not done soon, it just starts falling apart. And I see it throughout the neighborhood. While I appreciate what the historic district is trying to accomplish by maintaining the historic nature of the properties, I didn't think that our effort to improve the property was off, other than possibly the materials, which again, everybody so far has said, I'm not aware I'm in a historic district. Well, it wasn't a historic district when I lived there, but apparently that changed. So I would hope that we can come to a reasonable recommendation for how we can finish the project in some way that makes sense and that doesn't cost a ton of money, because I don't know how it works. If you're in violation and you started a project, I guess you just stop and let it all fall apart, because I have seen that happen, and I would hope that's not the case. So I leave it to the discretion of this commission to figure out what the best next step is.
All right, commissioners, any questions for our applicant? Doesn't look like it. Okay, thanks. All right, then let's turn to public comments for design review. There's nobody here in person, so if anyone is out there joining us virtually that would like to speak, please click the hand raise button in Zoom, dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand. If you're joining by phone, Email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number if you're having difficulty with those options. I don't see any hand raised, and the person that had their hand up earlier, it's not here. So I do not see any hand raised, so let's, staff, were there, Ann, did you have anything else that you wanted to?
No.
Okay, great. Alrighty, then commissioners. Thoughts? It's a beautiful house. Really beautiful.
And I just want to say I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've recently been there myself. Thoughts?
I don't think there's much to say beyond if third-party assessment of the windows say they're repairable, they're probably repairable. Guidelines pretty specific about, you know, if you can fix it, fix it. And so I would support staff on this, that they need to repair the windows, and that's it.
All right, George.
That's the guideline.
Yeah, we'll have to deliver, you can deal with, work with the landmark representative after our deliberation. Larry?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with staff. One thing I wanted to bring up, just in general, since we've got a couple of these things where property owners, you know, apparently didn't know. I went onto the city of Denver's community planning development website just to see kind of what information is out there when you're, you know, a homeowner looking at, okay, if I want to do such and such thing, what would I need to, you know, do I need a permit and so forth. And on the under residential interior remodel, which is kind of a vague thing, but it does specifically say about windows, doors, and skylights. Has information about, do I need a permit, under what conditions, and then there's a thing about landmarks and historic districts. All projects that include exterior work located in a historic district or a designated landmark will require a certificate of appropriateness. So it's not like that information is sort of, you know, difficult to find. I wanted to just check in on that and make sure that that wasn't like a huge challenge for homeowners to find.
There are many restoration products that are very easy to use. I've done dozens of windows myself. It can be done. So,
All right. Gary, did you have any thoughts?
No.
No? Erica, any thoughts? No? All right, do I hear a motion?
script. I'll do. Madam Chair, I move to deny application 2024 COA 256 for window replacement at 1366 North Humboldt Street per design guidelines 2.16, 2.17, and 2.19 character defining features for the Wyman Historic District, presented testimony and submitted documentation and information provided in the staff report.
George, thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Erica has seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, so the application has been denied and you'll need to work with Ann on some of the details. Thank you very much. And good luck with the project. Wow, it's a gorgeous house. All right, then that brings us to business items. And, election of chair and vice chair.
So if you could just quickly read.
I could quickly read it.
No public comment on this.
The chair will announce each business item on the agenda, and so far we only have one. The staff will introduce the business item. Commissioners can question staff. Staff clarification if necessary. Commission will deliberate, and commission will make a motion and vote. All right, staff.
So we have our yearly elections. As I presented this item last meeting, Julie is our chair and currently Erica is our vice chair. This was continued to confirm with Erica if she was comfortable with being vice chair. She has indicated to me that she is, but she is here today to represent herself.
Yes, if that's, if no one else wants to step in, and I'm fine to do it. I will say, I really appreciate the women's suffrage photo.
Well, last time I was here, I requested a hat. I'm like, I'll be the chairperson if I get to have a hat like that.
I hear Sue's getting rid of her hats.
It is suffering, that's for sure.
So if you can make a collective motion, you don't have to do them separately. However, everyone needs to vote for this to pass, so please don't recuse yourself, even though you may be.
Even though you may be on the ballot.
Yes.
All right.
You are allowed to vote for yourself.
All right.
I'll go ahead and make the motion.
Go
if
for
we're
it,
ready.
Larry.
I move to elect Julie Johnson as chair and Erica Warzel as vice chair of the Landmark Preservation Commission.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I'll give that one to George. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right. Where's my hat? All right, are there any discussion items?
That is all for today's agenda.
That is all for today's agenda. All right, then I will close the meeting. It is 7 minutes until 3 o'clock, and we'll see you in June. Thanks, everybody.